According to the Copernicus Climate Change Service, it is now virtually certain that the year 2024 will be the warmest going back to 1940 based on the data available through October. What makes this year a bit more significant is the fact that it will be the first year on record where the average global temperature is 1.5 degrees Celsius hotter than pre-industrial temperatures. The first 9 out of 10 months of this year have been over 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is a bit significant because the Paris Agreement was created to prevent an increase of temperatures like this. In 2015, 195 countries signed the agreement, and it was created by the United Nations. It states, the Paris Agreement's central aim is keeping a global temperature rise this century well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase even further to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Preventing the Earth's temperatures from breaching 1.5 degrees Celsius seems to have been a pretty active goal among a lot of governmental groups across the globe.
Time is of the essence now if the world passes 1.5 degrees.
Because we cannot afford to let the critical goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius slip out of our reach.
So I've been thinking, given the report from Copernicus, did we just breach a climate threshold? Well, yes and no. Let me first explain what the 1.5 degrees benchmark is and why that actually matters. So as I stated before, under the Paris Agreement, which was created at the 21st UN Climate Change Conference, countries agreed to reduce global emissions and pursue efforts to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial time period. Now, what constitutes as pre-industrial kind of varies from organization to organization, but for the Paris Agreement and for the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, they define that time period from 1850 to 1900. The agreement also vows to make sure that warming doesn't breach 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial time period. The UN states, limiting global warming to below 1.5 degrees Celsius will significantly reduce the risks, adverse impacts, and related losses and damages from climate change. This is ultimately why the 1.5 degrees Celsius benchmark was created. Tom Lamberto at NOAA put this pretty perfectly. He stated that the 1.5 degrees Celsius benchmark is like a highway speed limit. Every bit of additional speed increases the danger of an accident. He goes on to say that there is no single speed below the limit which the risks are zero and above which an accident is guaranteed to occur or to be deadly. However, a limit was picked where the risks become larger than we can tolerate, which is 1.5 degrees Celsius. Failure to stay below this threshold may result in an increase in dangerous and frequent extreme weather events, including heat waves, droughts, wildfires, and heavy precipitation and flooding. And according to a report on science.org, exceeding 1.5 degrees Celsius could trigger multiple climate tipping points, such as the breakdowns of major ocean circulation systems, collapse of tropical coral reef systems, and abrupt thawing of boreal permafrost. If the permafrost thaws, there could be a huge release of methane in the atmosphere, causing more warming. However, the UN explained that monthly and yearly breaches of 1.5 degrees Celsius does not mean that the Paris Agreement has been broken. But they state that monthly or yearly breaches of 1.5 degrees Celsius, like this past year, are early signs of getting perilously close to exceeding the long-term limit and serve as calls for increasing ambition and accelerating action. I spoke with meteorologist and climate specialist Jeff Berardelli about the Copernicus report, and this is what he had to say.
The technical definition of surpassing 1.5 is not surpassing it for 1 year, surpassing it for, they say, 20 years. We are likely to fall back below 1.5 probably, I'd say this year, just because La Nina is going to be kicking in.
Yeah.
But obviously, the next time we get an El Nino, we may never fall below 1.5 again. So it seems as though we're going to be breaching that 1.5 threshold consistently within just a few years, probably at the least.
According to Copernicus's temperature projections, the Paris Agreement's benchmark of 1.5 degrees might be officially breached by the 2030s.
We're certainly not surprised that we're getting close to 1.5. I think years ago, we thought there was a chance that we may be able to keep temperatures below 1.5 degrees. I think it became clear at least a couple to a few years ago that that wasn't going to be the case anymore. I think we were surprised to a large degree that last year, 2023, temperatures jumped as much as they did. And when we saw that, I think we realized that we were already pretty close to 1.5. And certainly this year, given that temperatures didn't fall very rapidly, they did fall a little bit, but not fall nearly enough and not nearly rapidly enough that we are now basically at that 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold.
Berardelli also states that as we get to new thresholds, we start to run the risk of tipping points in the climate system that we may not have tipped if we kept below a certain tenth of a degree.
The Amazon being one of those, West Antarctic ice sheet being another one, the AMOC, the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. There's probably a point at which we get so warm and we keep it there for at least enough time such that we tip it. And if we had kept it just a few or a couple of tenths of a degree less, we wouldn't have tipped those major climate systems and biological systems. I think most of this is incremental, just gets incrementally worse the more heat we add, which also means that if we can incrementally keep climate change down, we can keep temperatures down, then we can incrementally make things better than they otherwise would have been.
President-elect Donald Trump recently announced that Chris Wright, the CEO of the Denver-based fracking company Liberty Energy, will be nominated as the new Department of Energy Secretary. Reuters reported that Wright called climate activists alarmists, and Wright has likened efforts by Democrats to combat global warming to Soviet-style communism. Trump also campaigns on drilling more in the United States, repeating his slogan of "Drill, baby, drill." So I asked Berardelli, if the United States won't be of any help within the next 4 years, do you think the world's CO2 emissions and temperatures can decrease by efforts from other countries? As in, do you foresee other countries picking up the slack?
I do think there's opportunity for other countries to take the leadership role that the United States could very well have taken, but probably won't be taking. I think one of those countries is China, but for them, it's not so much about saving the climate, it's more economic opportunity. If we leave green initiatives behind, such as wind and solar and electric cars and restructuring our grid, if we leave that behind, then certainly other countries, especially China, are going to see an economic advantage for them kind of taking the ball and running with it. And therefore, they will be able to green their economy faster and also probably make a lot of money and create a lot of jobs doing so.
Yeah.
I don't know, though, if that's really going to result in tangible decreases in emissions, unfortunately, because I think there's not really the willpower in the world right now to reduce emissions very quickly. I think probably what we're seeing in terms of climate action is more an attempt by countries, including the United States under Joe Biden, to capitalize on climate change by creating more jobs and a stronger economy based upon, the green industrial revolution. So if we don't take advantage of the green industrial revolution, other countries will. Now, a side effect of the green industrial revolution is a decrease in carbon emissions, as long as we can get most countries on board for that.
Right.
But I don't know that there's going to be much movement in the next few years, because if the United States abdicates our responsibility to curb greenhouse gas emissions, then other countries may in fact move forward faster with their emissions reductions. But I don't know if it's quite enough to counteract whatever the United States may do in the next few years. I think we're going to have a hard time limiting warming to 2 degrees Celsius. I can't make any predictions about whether we can limit warming to 2.5 degrees Celsius or 3 degrees Celsius. I think we're on track, or at least have been on track, with the initiatives and the pledges that we've seen over the past decade or so to keep us somewhere around 2.5 degrees Celsius. That was the running thought process.
Yep.
I think with new political changes in the world, I would say that if all bets aren't off, they may be off soon.
I also spoke with Elliot Jacobson, a retired professor of mathematics and a climate researcher, about the recent Copernicus report. He said that breaching 1.5 degrees Celsius will happen within the decade.
Oh, we're going to be past it. The most optimistic estimate is early 2030s. The most pessimistic is as early as 2027.
Okay.
So it pretty much doesn't matter what humanity does at this point. It will be breached sometime between 2027 and 2032.
According to ClimateCentral.org, climate change made elevated sea surface temperatures in the tracks of 2024 hurricanes up to 800 times more likely. Hurricane-warmed ocean temperatures made hurricanes like Helene and Milton even stronger, adding 16 miles per hour and 23 miles per hour, respectively.
I think in the near term, what we've seen this year is going to be very typical in that we're starting to get these super charged tropical storms, cyclones, and hurricanes, typhoons. We should look for those to be at least 15 to 30 miles an hour stronger than they would have been otherwise without this temperature spike. And then we can look at, along with that, sort of these flash floods and these flash droughts. So when you have a hotter climate, right, it creates two impacts. So the atmosphere can hold more moisture, roughly 7% more for every 1 degree Celsius of temperature rise. So on the one hand, the atmosphere is going to have a lot more moisture in it, so we're going to have flooding storms increasing. On the other hand, we're going to have the atmosphere capable of sucking up moisture from the planet's surface faster. So we're going to have faster droughts occurring. We need to be reducing CO2 by 7 or 8% a year, and yet we're still increasing CO2 this year compared to, to getting to a historical high. We need to be curbing methane, and methane continues to spike upwards. The actual things that need to be done to make a difference are simply not going to happen. I mean, we're not going to curtail all unnecessary travel. So you can no longer visit your relatives. You can no longer fly in a plane. You can no longer drive your car. You have to take public transportation, right? I mean, this sort of authoritarian pressure on transportation is absolutely necessary to make any difference here. I mean, the other part of this is the agriculture industry, right? That's responsible for about 30% of greenhouse gases. I mean, how do we get people to stop eating beef or factory farmed meats of all sorts? I mean, these are you're not going to do these things that really turn the corner in a huge amount.
Okay, so to answer my question, no, we did not breach the climate threshold. However, it does seem like we will be breaching it within the next few years or in 2030. I think that this is definitely a wake-up call, and it's definitely a sign that we as a collective and as the entire world need to come together and really figure out how to solve this issue, because it's only going to get worse from here on out. Baradelli and Jacobson told me that we shouldn't be caught up on the 1.5 and 2 and 2.5 and 3 degrees Celsius thresholds, but we should be more so focusing on how to prevent warming now and not wait until it gets even worse. The effects of climate change are already here, and it's a bit concerning, especially for me who lives on the coast, possibly could deal with not only rise of sea levels, but also increase of tropical activity, tropical storms, hurricanes coming up the coast. And also now droughts are a huge thing, apparently, in my area. So these are all things that are only going to get worse from here on out. And like I said, I think we all need to come together to figure out a solution to this as soon as possible. For this channel, I kind of just want to do videos where I research and answer just these random questions that pop up into my head every week. The topics that I would love to address on my channel would include, obviously, weather, climate, environmental related issues, but also anything related to politics, music, culture, honestly, just anything that really just I could that pops into my head and I can think of I want to definitely address on here. So, but I appreciate you guys giving the time to watch this video, and I hope you guys learned something from this, and hopefully this will be an issue that won't be as big of a problem down the line. Who knows? Don't know, but we all definitely need to get together. As I mean like governmental groups need to get together and figure out a solution to this as soon as possible. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.